The answer to the question is absolutely is risky. When you have to expose your company, who is used to and have built policies around controlled devices that they provision, they provide, and all of a sudden now introduce an entire swath of devices they have zero visibility into and zero control into, that introduces a very significant inherent risk. And then on top of that, just to get employees connected using these devices, again, oftentimes you have things like VPN access and client control and a bunch of different, kind of unique ways that have been tuned specific to a corporate-owned device that you don't have available to you on your privately owned device. So many companies have to now relax a lot of security standards and policies just to be able to enable, people from home who are not using corporate devices to get in and actually work and produce like they normally would. Just increases the risk profile quite a bit. Another challenge outside of just access and everything else is really just ensuring that you can get your employees connected to begin with. As Charles was talking about with VPN and how you set up direct connections and understanding ISPs, just getting your employees online, taking it a step farther. A lot of companies hadn't really thought of the scale at which, we were seeing in the workplace today because of COVID and the response there. And so to his point with Cisco, actually having to divvy out and kind of monitor out their own VPN connections, many companies globally are dealing with this. So what are some more unique ways to manage connectivity without having to require something like VPN? And so one of the big solutions out there that, a lot of companies have maybe dipped their toes into, but most companies have not actually adopted, is a dyed-in-the-wool mobile device management platform or solution set. And there are many different ways to leverage these types of tools. And today I'll talk about three that kind of hit the large swath of devices out there. Obviously, if you think about mobile devices, the majority from a desktop perspective is Windows. When it comes to things like tablets and phones, the big two obviously are Apple and Google variant and Android, right? And so those are that covers the large swath of devices that people try to connect to and need to use to connect to business applications, business services, on and on, right? So one thing that organizations can do if they've already got some mobile device management capabilities in place and they have the ability to extend out some of their business services beyond VPN securely. So leveraging things like cloud services. So Office 365, Microsoft 365, that platform is built very well to support mobile device management and user-based access, essentially turning all of their internal applications into almost software as a service, which is pretty compelling. On the Apple space, there's a business grade or business account solution that companies can tap into. Again, a lot of organizations use Apple almost exclusively. And it has traditionally been a pretty tough bear to manage from a business perspective. And conversely, the same thing in education. So a lot of school systems, have either been deploying Chromebooks or Apple devices for years, in some cases decades. And there are solutions available to tie in and centrally manage these devices directly through Apple, but then there's some other tools that can really bolster and enhance businesses' capabilities to provide solutions and services as well that they can tap into. On the Apple side, one of the big leaders in that space is a company called Jamf, and they integrate directly in with Apple so that an organization or school can very, very rapidly set up policies, procedures, and access capabilities to any device anywhere in the company, as long as they have, or country, as long as they have access to the internet. You can essentially log on to a link, and the company in the back end will build a secure profile that will give a device also sort of like a sandbox experience, if you will. And so if there is an application that's uniquely, only available inside a company, you can actually now enable any device securely to connect up through a defined profile that Jamf has, given them access to. It'll carve out basically a sandbox on their device. They will then see an application pop up on their screen, whatever device they're using. They can click on it, type in their work credentials as they normally would. This entire connection is typically encrypted end to end, so you don't have to worry about outside threats coming in and trying to hijack your link. And then business as usual once you get in and start using it. And when you're done, you disconnect, the sandbox goes away, and there's zero footprint on these personally owned devices. So you really control that experience. Now, within that confines, you have a lot more granularity and control over publicly owned devices or privately owned devices, as it confines into dealing with work-based connectivity and organizational control over how people can access devices beyond just requiring a VPN connection. There's a number of benefits to that. A lot of times in a mobile workforce, you have folks who are just not always in a city, or some big populated area with a lot of available bandwidth. Some of the other challenges that help solve is for those folks in rural areas who have very slow connections, where running a thick client, if you will, on a desktop isn't always viable. And a lot of times you can actually use these MDM or mobile device management solutions to produce a much faster, cleaner experience to mobile applications than ever before through a number of different technologies as well. Some of the other major players in this space would be AirWatch, which has been out for a long time, owned by VMware. They've now included it in their Workspace ONE product. Taking a step farther with Office 365 and that ecosystem is a product called Intune, and readily available with additional licensing. If you've already, subscribed as a business into Office 365, or because of this effort, you've decided to try to set up a hybrid cloud environment in your own company and actually leverage Azure and Office 365 to deal with access management, identity management, et cetera. That's a tool that can be used and bolstered to build the same experience I just described. Probably a third would be XenApp and XenDesktop. They have a new tool, also very, very compelling. There's a number of providers in this space, but those are probably the leaders in the market. And I know for a fact that there are enhanced acceleration services that can be produced to where a company can really start spinning up mobile device management, assuming they have, a list of criteria, checkpoints in place as it relates to what type of access they need to give, how they want to secure it, how they want to operationalize it, and then ultimately how they want to govern it and ensure that they're maintaining security postures as they're deploying these new services. But there's rapid quick start services that can get people up and running in as little as a few days, and then deployed nationally. And so it's something worth looking into, and something that I think will add a huge amount of value to organizations who need to tackle very quickly the challenge from a security standpoint of how to secure devices they don't own and control, and how to help get their employees to securely access applications and services, even if they're constrained by bandwidth based on locality or technology capability and prowess.